pop up on my Facebook. Oh, check this countdown.
This seems quite official.
Awesome. Welcome to everybody to the live Songlines Q&A. For those of you that either maybe don't know the sport or don't know what exactly you're tuning into, we have the Songlines team member, Trace, and then Heidi's on as well. Hopefully going to help with some questions, etc. Making sure it's on mute. And yeah, we're basically going to hopefully try and get a good rundown. We're not going to drag this out too long, but you're welcome to fire away any awesome questions at anyone, be it Heidi from a sort of organizational point of view, but of course the team, I'm sure you have lots of questions for them. But they've just come off World Champs that was hosted in Paraguay, ARWS World Champs, of course, which is hosted annually and is pretty much the sort of, you could call it the holy grail of adventure racing. It rotates around the world in terms of venues, so it's not always in the same place. And this year the course was 564 Ks, approximately, depending on how much nav the errors were made. 8 legs, of which 4 were treks, 3 were bikes, and 1 was a really long paddle. And yeah, the only South African team representative this year, and it was their first one as a unit and as a team. And how exciting to have them represent our country on their own, pretty much. It's not always the case, but this year it was, and pretty incredible showing. And yeah, we look to any questions. Waiting to see if anyone's come in yet. Yeah, and another thing, one thing you guys, if you don't follow this team's certainly the top in the country by having won pretty much the vast majority of the races that they've participated in the last 2 years. And it's been amazing to see them actually get onto the world stage and show what they have in them. Yeah, so I'll open up with how many people? Okay, cool. Oh, sorry. Don't forget to ask your questions, because that stands you in line of winning a pair of Merrell shoes, any of your choice. So basically asking a question is your entry. So if you don't ask a question, you're not going to win a pair. So, and which we'll pick that after this. Yeah, so let's open up. So how does it take a team like yours to get to the start line? I don't know if you want to all answer, or if you want to chip in, one or two of you, and that's from, everything from training to who made it happen, who got you guys to that start line first and foremost, Colv, maybe as the captain, you.
Yeah, it's a team effort for a start. The evolution of Team Songlines, it was a pretty organic process. I mean, it was Lance and I had a chat about forming a team in the beginning of 2021, and yeah, like coupled together a few friends. There was Owen and Tamika back then that joined Lance and I, and that was when Heidi had just put on the Africa series, the regional series, and it was a perfect opportunity for us to race and see how we would go. And we didn't really have too many goals from the start. So again, it was quite an organic process, and once we gained some momentum, so I guess the horizon expanded, and so we thought we could do bigger and better things. And fast forward to now, I mean, last year we managed to win the Africa series, and then that got us a free entry to Paraguay. So Paraguay World Champs then became the big goal. And so, yeah, now we found ourselves post-Paraguay and thinking about the next big goal, which is 2023 World Champs, which is just around the corner from me, at least. I'm based in Plet, so we definitely feel like we've got some home ground advantage there. So looking forward to next year.
Awesome. Okay. Questions are coming in thick and fast. I don't know, Tracy's a dog lover, so I might fire this one at you. Neil Andrew Valence asked, oh no, sorry, he asked John, did you keep the dog?
To be honest, I didn't keep the dog. I think Tracy would have liked to have kept the dog, but we actually 2/3 of the way through the trekking section, we got to we had all the zip lines, and I think the dog made new friends there. It got a bit tired of the. We must have done 80 to 100 k's with the dog. Unbelievable. I mean, we weren't feeding the dog anything. It was just. Thank goodness it can drink water out of all the streams. But I mean, we couldn't take care of the dog, obviously. And I think it joined other teams there and might have completed the whole section. I don't know, to be honest. Yeah, but it was fun to watch anyway. I think Tracy fell in love with the dog. Another dog story.
Did you, Tracy?
I did fall in love with the dog. But it just kept us occupied for that hike. It was so cool to watch it like navigate through the barbed wire fences and go from team to team and just like remind everyone that it was there. It was just lifting. And when it got to the zip line, then it disappeared. It was quite sad. But what a beautiful dog and stunning moment.
That's I mean quite incredible. There's been quite a lot of stories around dogs joining adventure races, of which there's actually one really Mark Wahlberg blockbuster movie made on it. Funny enough. Sorry, you guys aren't going to be having a movie of next time. Cool. Asked, which leg you experienced as a team? I don't know who wants to chip in there. John or Lancey, maybe.
I think difficult to say is you the hardest leg I think often ends up being the one where you're the weakest in the team. How hard a leg feels is often how you're feeling relative to the team. You might be feeling really, really bad, but you the strongest in the team, and then that leg feels relatively easy. I think that first leg being 120 k's of trekking and right at the start of the race, knowing what's to come or thinking what's still to come was quite a hard one to our minds around. As a leg on its own, if that was the finish of the race, it would have been one thing. You just push through and get to the end, but trying to get with a mind of conserving your body and all of the various different things that go into getting to the finish as a strong team, I think made that the most difficult for me.
For sure. Been there. Who was there? Who else had some super low points?
I'd second Lance with that. That the first leg was definitely the hardest. I mean, the pace is hot. Believe it or not, we do start running these 500-kilometer races. We do start with the run. It's not as if it's a track, and it's a 32-hour run with a bit of tracking in between. Extremely hot. You've got to feed yourself. You do feel it. I mean, 2:00 in the morning, I remember 2:00, we're up with the top teams, and one team decides to run. We all have to run. We all have. You got to dig deep, really deep to carry on for 30 hours doing that. But personally, as Lance said, Nell, that the last three trekking legs were particularly hard, and the last one in particular, as foot just deteriorated. I just remember leaving the transition just hobbling. I couldn't even take half a and I slowly warmed up. But that's, as you say, if you're injured, that makes a big difference to perspective of the legs.
Yeah, sure. So it's quite crazy. One of the questions I had in, I guess, my artillery was to ask you the pace. It's quite insane to think. Started with what was a 122 kilometer trek, and yet, as if that was enough to just to be a race on its own. And a whole another 7 legs after that, and a whole another 500 or 430 k's thereafter. So that's incredible. Next level. Cool. Next question. Go, Cal.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think from a strategy point of view, like we all felt like we could maybe push the run. I mean, the first trek a little bit harder than we would like, given that there was a long paddle coming next. And we would be on our bums for 14 hours, and paddling is always a good chance to, when it's non-load bearing, something like an activity like that, it's a good chance to eat, and you can actually digest food and somewhat recover. So from like, I think from the get-go, like the idea was to try and we felt like we would maybe push it a little bit hard during the first trek, and hopefully then recover on the paddle, which we did somewhat. And maybe we can dive into that a little bit later.
Awesome that you actually speak of strategy, because there's a really good question now. Damien, PE local, I think, as far as I know. Hey, Trace. Hello, team. Yeah. Do you think you went out too hard? Question mark. It could have done to save John's feet. If you wouldn't mind at the same time, John, please show us your feet. Someone else has also asked, can you? So whilst someone answers that, John, if you can show us your feet, maybe someone else can answer. Trace, maybe you can answer. Do you guys feel like you went out too hard? Could you have done something different?
I don't think we went out too hard. We were keeping, the same pace as the top teams, and that was the intention. I think that yes, we probably could have maybe done something to save John, in to like if we had maybe just stopped for a few minutes just to lube them. Like just be more attentive to his gross. That's John's feet. So I think they went out the window a little bit in the first leg, where that was the downfall. But I don't feel hot.
Cool. Anybody else want to chip in? Do you think you guys went out too hard? No? Happy?
No.
Happy, Captain?
Not at all. I don't think we went out too hard. I think, the feet have nothing to do with the pace that we went out. I think that's the feet is a different topic. It's more pre-prep. I'd say the night before I should have started Barrier Balm. If you put suntan lotion on after your swim, and then you notice the suntan lotion doesn't stick to your skin, and it's pretty much the same with Barrier Balm. If you do it, 20 minutes before a race, nothing so excessive. So it's just going out. My mistake. So so that's something that I can advise people. Start. Lance was actually doing it for a week before. Start your feet long before you start the race, and hopefully they won't soak up as much moisture.
Sure. Okay. So Lancey, Barrier Balm works like a charm, does it?
Yeah, I've been a big believer in Barrier Balm since I started adventure racing. There's obviously a lot of other products around the world that are similar, chafe creams, and you see all of the top teams doing it. I mean, probably 5 or 6 times, even in the first night, we would stop to fill up water, and you'd see a few people in each team take their shoes off, lube up, shake the sand out of their socks, shoes back on. So I think those little stops. I read Nathan Fave's race report. He stressed how well they took care of their feet. Often those were actual tactical decisions where they wanted the teams to get ahead so they couldn't follow them navigationally, but it did allow them extra time in those first few legs to like stop for 5 minutes as a team. Everyone takes care of their feet. Everyone puts on chafe cream. I learned a lot from one of AR and AR's YouTube videos, Adam Rose. Most people in veg racing will be familiar with him. He talks about using a foot rasp or even just sandpaper to get rid of all of your calluses up to about 2 weeks before the event, and then for the week or two leading up to the event, putting on Vaseline or barrier balm or something that lubricates your feet and try and get them as soft as a baby's bum in the lead up to the race, so that you've got no kind of hard spots on your foot when you start the race. So I think, it's a two-part system. You want to go in with your feet as prepped as you can, and then during the race, obviously you can't neglect stopping as soon as you feel any hot spots on your feet. All of these things are sometimes difficult to notice when you're in the heat of competition, to pick up, is this a hot spot? Is it just a piece of sand that's irritating? When is it worth it to lose track of a team, to take care of your feet? These are all nuances that, it's difficult, and all four of you as individuals have to pick up on them. Tricky. Foot care is not an exact science.
Yeah, flip it. It's pretty incredible to see you go into to foot care. It shows you how pivotally important, as you say, not an exact science and not easy to get right every time, Well done, regardless of getting to the finish with the from leg one already. That's flipping impressive. Alfred Thorpe asked, who was hit sleep deprivation? Oh, let's put it to a vote. I thought it was going to be Lance.
Yeah, that'll be me. I think I went a bit hard on the paddle in the second night, and then our original strategy had been to sleep at the end of the paddle, in or close to the transition, and we were there around midday. Brazil Multisport came into the transition as we were about to leave, and we thought this is a good opportunity to leave with another team and do some of the bike nav in the light. And so we basically pushed through into the third night with basically zero sleep. We'd had like a 35-minute sleep on the second night, which I don't think any of us fell asleep. We just kind of lay there. So yeah, the others handled it well. I didn't. I fell apart, became delirious. That night seemed like an eternity to me.
Yes, that's all. It's never the easiest dealing with. Cool. Van Veek asked, well done with the race, guys. You guys are champs. What was the most inspiring thing or motivation to keep race? Trace.
Well, our flights were booked on Friday, so we were motivated to finish on Thursday. I mean, we all competitive. We wanted to just give our best, complete end. And yeah, I think that's what we did. No one was going to give up anytime soon.
Wicked. So cool. Yeah, it was quite funny regarding the flight issue, when Sabrina Calvin's wife messaged me and was like, they fly on Friday at 4. And I was like, okay, but it's 30 hours from now. It's like, I'm panicking a bit. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't blame you, because in reality, I don't know the day of the week. And then it was hilariously funny because rolled in, and that's literally exactly what Lance said on the video that came to and the respective family and friends, that Lance has no cooking clue what day of the week it is, which is so true. But I think pretty beautiful that you guys managed to keep it. Well done. Cool. Keith also said congrats, guys, and then asked how did and the various style of with the race Africa. Really cool question. If now John or Lance, who was backup, who I know the map for a lot of it. Maybe John, you want to chip in first, and then Lance, you can go second.
Yeah, the maps were very good, a lot of detail. All the trekking sessions were done, which was a lot of detail. Author photographs overlaid with photographs overlaid with contours and on the trekking. Although the style of navigation was slightly different to South Africa, many checkpoints, so very little up to route choice, which in a sense doesn't make it as exciting. We're all kind of following the same route. Then the normal 1 in 50s were used on the bicycle treks, very nicely clean, updated. The organizers put a lot of effort into their maps and updating and keeping it current. We'd all be familiar with the 1 in 50s. Maybe just more updated than our South African maps, but I think it's personal updates that the organizers did, not the government. When it came down to the navigation, a lot of it was finding tracks rather than the waypoints. The tracks led us to the waypoints, so that was easy in a sense. But needless to say, some of the tracks were non-existent or very hard to find. Especially at nightfall, we struggled to find these tracks. I don't think we made many big mistakes, 1 or 2 wrong turns. All in all, it was quite a clean race for us. We did do one loop, however. A sleepless loop on the bike. I don't know if it was Navin, it was me or Lance. I think both of us were fast asleep, but I think it was quite clean on the whole.
Lance, you got a short little bit to add there on the nav?
I think John covered most of it. Yeah, the navigating with the orthophoto maps was something totally different for us. Being able to see, especially the vegetation boundaries, which were very well defined and hadn't changed since they printed the maps, was a huge help. On the trekking legs, the biggest challenge was finding the tiny little tracks through the forest and staying on them, because often there would be little splits, and so you'd have to make sure you're walking on the right bearing and know exactly where you are on the track and where it should be bending. The cycling was just incredibly accurate. We used to navigation being a bit of an art of knowing what to trust and what not to trust here in South Africa. And I think that's part of the fun here. So it took a few legs to actually realize that you could trust almost everything that were on the cycling maps. And that was, gave us a lot of confidence going forward. Maybe at times too much confidence.
Maybe that was the sleep. Not your fault. So Trace, I've got a 2-part question for you. Okay. How did you prepare your mind for a race of this stature being called up? Serious mojo zone meditation on the airplane in it with an exclamation mark. I don't know if people know. I'll give a quick text. Tracy was, unfortunately, Jess Pollock had a stress fracture. 4th member of Songlines, and Tracy was called up literally 2 days before getting together. Trace with the awesome attitude and got stuck in. And yeah, I think it was a great question. So the rest is yours. And then one last thing. And then what did you eat? Someone asked you that as well.
So the question was, how did I prepare myself for the race 2 days before?
Yeah, so he was basically asking, like, how did you just prepare something of that magnitude, that stature, you know?
That's the thing. The great thing about adventure racing is that you can only train for the first day, and the rest is mental. So if you have a strong mind, they can pretty much get you through any. Luckily, I've been doing the series. Feet as soon as I found out about the race, and that was quite a blister the whole race. So I was pretty stoked.
I think your connection there broke up a bit, but we got the vast majority of it. Unless you're still going. Certainly on my computer at least.
No, I'm going.
Yes, we'll chat to you when your comms are a bit better. Calv, as captain, I mean, I know it's your first World Champs, and in comparison to the three teammates around you, you're a relative newbie in sport. But it's a good. What are your thoughts on how the sport will grow over the after experiencing the international exposure?
Calv, you're on mute.
You
There we
mean
go.
in South Africa or in general?
It didn't specify, but I think maybe you can.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really been privy to like the ups and downs of the popularity of adventure racing much before 2 years ago. So I don't feel like I can speak to that maybe as accurately as somebody else, but it does seem like we have some momentum at the moment, and the sport is on the up. I think Heidi and Stefan do an amazing job from a grassroots point of view to get people, novices who've never done any adventure racing, into the sport. And then we've got a number of other events that maybe test the more seasoned campaigners. And so it feels like we've got a really nice ecosystem of events. And there's there are a few teams that are also pushing the performance side of things, which I guess you do need to also help motivate and grow the sport. So I feel pretty optimistic about the growth. I mean, obviously it's a huge plus having World Champs in South Africa next year. But yeah, maybe Heidi would probably be the best person to answer that question. I mean, having been in this for so long, where do you think it's going, Heidi?
Okay, hi guys. I mean, for me, I've been involved how many years now? Maybe coming to time with John. Back all those years. I mean, obviously, I guess internationally it had its ups and downs, but for us in South Africa, it's just been growing all the years. Maybe like Calvin said, we are a few race directors, and over the years just kept on, working hard from grassroots levels, like, smaller races, longer races. We always looked at the numbers. We always see what people, Stefan is kind of statistical man. So he will look at how many people do a longer race, how many people do a shorter distance race. So you work it out, and then we align the races according to that. But we definitely happy. Obviously, COVID happened the last 2 years in the world. So people, the moment, just need to echo you at the back. So definitely, I think, we're going with the World Champs. There's a lot of excitement in South Africa, I hope, and in the world. Like now, we've been in Paraguay as well. Everybody's excited to have it for the first time in Africa. But you know what I mean? It is hard work around the world. I speak with all the race directors around the world and all the countries. And all the countries are all working hard to grow it, from smaller races to longer races, to make a combination of events and see what works. Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lifespan on everybody. I think John will vouch for that. You do a race. Guys, I've got family speaking in the back. You do a race and then sorry guys for that. You do a race and you get family or children, or you move job, or you move countries. So people come in the sport and go out of the sport, and then there's a time when you come back maybe with your children again. So if you fall in love with adventure racing, you will always sort of come back to adventure racing. And we can see it now with all the guys. I mean, if you look at people who race the World Champs now again, it's people who raced 20 years back and they're still racing. So they maybe skip a year or two, 5 years back, they're there again. The good thing about adventure racing is it's not, actually the older you are, the more knowledgeable you are and more tougher you are. So it's actually a sport which you can do for a very long time. I mean, even if you look at, the current world champions, if you look at Nathan and his team, they're getting on the older side and they're the best in the world. So, yeah, I mean, it is really a durable sport. So yeah, going back to the sport, we're very excited. We think it's growing. We believe it's growing. We believe there's a lot of options around the world in different countries, new countries. If you look at our World Series, there's every week a new country that contacts me to say they want to be part of our World Series in unknown countries. Like, they started, obviously a sport of four is difficult. 4 people is difficult, and a lot of the countries it's difficult to find a woman. So it got its limitations. I think it will always be a niche sport, but definitely we're positive.
Incredible. Yes, incredible to hear where the sport's going. It's amazing. And to watch you guys and see the international teams and the exposure, it was flipping phenomenal. So I'm certainly with you. I hope it's going to continue to grow. Yeah, so Diane Troutman, we've sort of touched on this. Surely a relative of Calvin, not ironic. Looking forward to World Champs 2023 here in South Africa. Is there anything you would have done differently in terms of your training and race preparation? So in other words, would you have done something differently in the lead up? Calvin, maybe you want to chip in there?
No, is a short answer. I think like the couple of races before we left for Worlds, we all felt from a fitness point of view that we were there and thereabouts. Obviously we were quite short of expedition race experience, racing longer races. We'd done a lot of short races together, but we didn't have much long race experience. So we always knew going into Paraguay that there would be quite a steep learning curve from that side of things. Obviously it was a big blow. Jess not making the start line, and could we have changed something pre-Worlds in terms of training, and that would have got her there? Yeah, maybe. But yeah, on the whole, I don't think, looking back at it, we would have changed much. I think we saw this as a really important building block, like good chance to learn as a team and as individuals where our limits were and where we could improve, so that we could take on or focus on the big goal, which is next year's World Champs in 2023.
Look forward to that. A load of questions, so we're going to keep getting through them. Lisa, she said, what are the So this is touching on basically how do you keep each other awake in essence. What are the fun tactics to keep the team awake and motivated and moving at the pace when the cameras are not around? Soft singing, question mark. Who is the best team joker, question mark? And who's the best story team, question mark? Someone's got to have a story of someone, yeah. Yeah, so you're all quiet. Does no one keep anyone awake here?
I think Trace was probably number one team motivator. I normally quite like to just chat my way through the night, but I was very antisocial in this race and just staring at maps. But yeah, Trace was doing an incredible job at motivating us along. So I'd give her that prize.
Thanks, Lance.
The cheerleader, hey, Trace. At any stage, because I've raced with Tracy and I've had this shouted at me once or twice, did you ever have to remind them that it's a race?
Never.
Maybe the opposite.
For sure. I'd been reminded plenty of times by Tracy that it's a race, especially on the last leg. Come on, John. The whole fucking last 20 kilometers. I had Tracy on my back.
Want to get this
one other moment that springs to mind for me is when we got onto the paddle. It's very hard to stay awake paddling, even in the day, but especially at night when you're going into, night 2, I suppose. So Tracy and I started singing, and shortly after that, Calvin said, "Do you guys want a tow?" And they put us on tow, and then we started singing another song, and he turned around at one point and he said, "Are you guys even paddling?"
You want to stay awake from the water.
And then, I feel like we did get some sympathy later on. We didn't do much towing ourselves, but we had some brief moments where we towed them, and they saw that there's something that happens. The moment you get put on tow on the paddle, you just fall asleep. It's just like someone tucking you in with a blankie. It's just, I would just wake up every time our boat turned about 45 degrees to theirs and do like a stroke or two to keep us going straight.
John and I were in a boat, obviously, and our tactic to stay awake on the paddle at least seemed to be swimming. We took 2 swims during the night. You couldn't. The river was really windy, and you actually had to. The river was flowing a fair bit, and you actually had to concentrate. There were a lot of submerged trees, and with the boat on tow, you had to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of the tree that was coming at you in order to get around it, or get 2 boats around it. And we came unstuck a couple of times and ended up in the drink. At least we were wide awake afterwards for 15 minutes.
Oh, that's classic. It's amazing because from the photos, it actually looked like an exception. Flat river, but I guess it was a flat river but with good flow because I know they had some rain, and it was raining on you at the time.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Lance was speaking actually of sort of being towed on the boat. So that leads me straight into my next question. I guess it's referring to other legs. Did you, Christine Collins, did you use a bungee at any? So of course on the paddle. Carl, maybe as skipper, you want to chip in there? Did you use bungees otherwise?
No, we used bungees actually precious little. We on the trekking legs we carry a bungee which we attach to the backpack, and then to whoever needs to be towed. The treks were pretty technical often, so it didn't really lend itself to being towed on the trek legs. And then the bike legs, we were all quite similarly matched. We have a dog leash that we attach to the seat post, which we use as a tow rope for the bike legs. And we actually didn't, I don't think we used that at all, maybe once or twice, but very, very little. Apart from the paddle was the only leg that we really towed each other. We carried each other a couple of times. Lance, towards the end of the race, and John's feet getting worse, he didn't really want to get his feet wet. So Lance would often carry John over any river crossings that we would have, which I thought was quite sweet. But yeah, no, precious little towing.
Amazing. That's the beauty of the unity of a Songlines team, eh? Flipping piggy made over a riverbed. That's flipping next level. Love it. Hey, Lance, you had strength to carry a human being on your back, even if it was 3 meters. That's pretty impressive. Where was this question? Calv, Alfred Thorpe asked, I see that you had the GoPro out. Can we expect a bit of a video? You can answer. I've asked you this question off air, but you can answer it quickly.
Yeah, Alfred, it started really well. I had a camera and Lance had a camera. We carried two because a lot of 90% of the checkpoints that we had to collect we had to take pictures of. So we carried two cameras in case we lost one, and it turns out we did lose one. And when we lost that one, it meant that I couldn't really do as much filming as I would have liked, and we had to save batteries and memory cards. But at least for the first trek and paddle, I did get some decent footage. So just stay tuned next week. I'm busy putting a little edit together we can share.
Yeah, I must say the little tidbits you've given us have been serious good value. It's always cool to have first-person view on a race. It's pretty incredible. So look forward.
There's so many things that go on in an adventure race that sleep deprivation just wipes from your memory. So it is nice to have a camera to remind you what actually happened out there. And give people an insight into what it's like, what racing is like, where you're going, what you're seeing, what Sleep Masters looks like, what you're eating, and all these little things that sometimes you just forget.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing, man. Well, look forward to that footage for sure. Heidi, one for you. Kim Stratham asked, said you did an amazing job keeping us posted, often barefoot. Did you sleep much is the first question. Go.
No. We didn't sleep much.
Standard Heidi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so we didn't sleep much either. We tried. I don't know if people know, but we actually were there to look after the AR World Series guys who did media, like, specifically Rob Howard, who does writing. So Stefan was the driver, and I was just there to help and support everybody and look at the race organization if I need to help them or anything. So you just end up working, you end up helping. There's kind of something happening behind the scenes all the time. You need to help or advisors or guide or fix, and then we got so excited about the team, of course, and we told them from the beginning, just make sure you're in the front pack, because then we can get footage and we can actually obviously share it with the guys. And then, of course, I think I should share this with everybody. I think people from home I think the four of them will know what it's real on the ground. It's just impossible to share on. We try to get little video clips and bring it as close as you can. But remember, we actually just see them in transitions. And you know what happens when you see people? You know, when they come into a transition, they suddenly wake up. I mean, a few times Lance really looked like he was full on sleeping. And when he got in, it's like he wakes up. And 120 Ks to start with, I think people don't have an idea how hard it is. And now they go out and suddenly they realize they can sort of hang in the top pack. And I mean, obviously, I'm sure the dream goal was, you know, to be somewhere within the top 10. And when you see how fast and good those top 10 teams are, it's just renewed respect for these four people. So I think we always knew it in them that they can be there. But for the South African people, you can be so proud. These guys, you know, just gave us more energy, and we didn't want to sleep. We just tried to get them, and then sometimes we had to drive so far to get to the next transition, you know, so we couldn't always get them. I couldn't really go off track to go and find them. You know, my lines, you know, it is a little bit blurred, seeing that I'm, you know, working for a World Series. So it's not that I, you know, can go always to places just to find the South African team. So I had to balance it nicely. But Kim, we didn't sleep much. We tried to get to everybody. You know, obviously a lot of teams, a lot of people I had to get clips to. But of course, we were so excited with our guys, and we wanted to see them. We actually waited for them at 1 or 2 points, and then we waited, and then we waited, and then we waited, and then they're not coming. And we're like, come on, guys, we're waiting for you. And we have to go, and we have to go. And then we can actually follow the tracker, and Stefan is like, where are they going? What are they doing? And they are so close to us, but then they just do a few extra circles. And for the viewers at home, you know, it's kind of crucial, and that is something people always must remember. It's kind of crucial what point you hit at what time of the day. You know, if you hit a certain point and it's still daytime, and I promise you 30 minutes later, like I know specifically at the kayak crossing, at the trekking where they had to cross the river, at that point we waited and waited, and if they were just 20 minutes earlier, they would get the path and they would easily find the river crossing. And there they just, I don't know, I'm sure the team can tell you what happened, but they just took forever. And I think they were either sleeping or they just, darkness fell, and it was so difficult to get that jungle path. And I mean, that is the difficulty of the sport. It is so complex because life, it's like life. It sort of favors the strong. And it sort of works out. I don't know why, but if you were like just at the right time, at the right place, you get a point and you're clear. And suddenly they missed that specific little path, and suddenly an hour gap opened between them and the next and the other teams. So it is a little bit of luck. It's a little bit at the right moment. You need to be awake and find something. But yeah, we try to get the guys all the time. We're so impressed. It was so exciting to have them doing so well. And yeah, we just had all these thoughts in our mind. Will they stay, keep up? Are they sleeping enough? I'm sure we all the same questions the family at home had over and over and over, worried about them. So yeah, we shared all those emotions all the friends at home had. I think we were more intensely involved because we're there, we can see them. Anyway, I can talk forever about the team. Somebody else can ask another question. But
nice. It's great. You effectively answered a couple of other questions there in terms of like what were your reflections on the team and stuff. So very well.
I'm sure.
This one's for you from Steve Burnett. The race for 5th place on the tracker. I can vouch for that. It's frustrating. How actively were you racing other teams, or you know, how often did you see them, or was it just looking to sort of getting to, or just getting to the finish? Basically focused on how, you know, how tight was that race that we saw online.
we were focused on being up there. I mean, we hung around. I think the first part of the race, we were actually in the lead. I'd say until midnight, swapping backwards and forwards. Actually, I forget what time, but we kind of hung around with Swedish Armed Forces and what are the Estonians for most of the night. I believe we took a wrong 3 o'clock in the morning, and we ended up all in the bushes discussing where the right path is. And I think that's where Avia and the Colombians overtook us, and Brazil. They must have been about 10 minutes behind us at that stage, but they overtook us while we were scouting in the bushes. We actually didn't realize that. So when we went back onto the course, we suddenly realized when we hit the Fufi slide, we were sitting in third or fourth place. But it was definitely a race up in front. Everybody eyeballing each other out. But as the race progressed, I think the kind of teams settled into their kind of positions. I mean, for me, I think I started to slow the team down. So our focus wasn't so much the top 3 teams as it was the next 3 teams, positioned basically 4 to 6. And that's where we kind of focused. And actually the focus started to slip even further and further as the race progressed and I got slower. Just to put everybody in perspective, I mean, and also people want to know where they fit in on the bigger picture of things. I mean, definitely, I think strength-wise, we are sitting just knocking on most probably 3rd, 4th position in the world, as in strength. I'd put ourselves above Brazil, although their movement on the bike was better than us, and their nav was very good. We're definitely strong on foot. And it's quite important for South Africans to know. I mean, for us, we know where we are, but for the rest of the crowd, I mean, when they compete against us, they like to also know where they would stand relative to everybody else in the world. And so that's just to put a bit of perspective into it. So, to be honest, 2 teams were super strong. I'd say Swedish Armed Forces are number 1 and number 2 because they are really strong and they put a lot of, I mean, they will blow us out of the water unless we put another half a year solid training into it. But Estonia, I think we almost can stick with them. Would need 1 or 2 more expedition races, and then Brazil. Yeah, I mean, but that's having said, that's this pool. I know there's a pitch this year, namely a lot of French teams, and so, but like to say we're in the top 5, 6 teams in the world is a good estimate physically anyway, and that's what I'd say to make your own judgments from there for the other teams in the country.
I think what's exciting for me is that if you look at these other teams who've been racing for so long versus us, I think in terms of like the potential to improve, I think we've got the most to improve. So I would hope that come and give us a few expedition races and a good 6 months of training, that we could go up a couple of notches, and where does that leave us then? So I think it was really exciting, and we're taking a lot from this race. And physically we always kind of knew that we belonged up front. We got a lot to learn from a strategy point of view, but there were some hard-earned lessons during the race that we're absolutely going to take with us going forward and learn from and improve. So I'm excited at the trajectory that we're on.
Cheapest. Top 10 in your first race and jousting it for the top 5, it's understandable. Exciting times, Oaks. Very, especially with home ground advantage coming up. No pressure. from a nutrition and something for you, Trace, by the way. Craig Geese asked it. From a nutrition and calorie, what are some key food items that helped ensure your food intake was on point? Because I know you're king of diet. And then there was another question which I'm going to merge with it. I'm just finding it. Hilgard Rousseau asked, what supplies? Sure, I heard Coca-Cola come up in some of the videos following the race. So yeah, maybe just touch on.
Yeah, so we used Perpetuum from Hammer, which is great because it's got a lot of carbs and it's easy to carry because it's so carb dense. Instead of carrying like a whole bunch of like little snacky stuff, like having that in a bottle and sipping on that, like we could get a lot of calories and carbs from that. Then also I found that the gels, like those Hammer gels at night, were great because they would like keep you awake, especially the caffeine ones. So we would smash those in the evening just to kind of keep us awake. We did work out a nutrition plan before, just how much we should have in each leg. So we pre-packed everything and everyone had more or less the same. I think my downfall with packing the nutrition packs was like John doesn't have such a sweet tooth. So like if I had to go back, I would have put more like savory stuff in John's pack. And then I found that he wasn't eating it a lot because he wasn't digging like all the peanut butter sandwiches and wraps. And yeah, so like that, like I definitely learned a lot about like people's eating habits. And I think it's important because then he just like stopped eating at some stage. And I was just like, yeah, until someone like pulled out a massive salami stick and then you'd be happy. In our resupply boxes, Coke definitely was like our go-to feel good red ambulance there. So that was always in our resupply box. And then obviously like some nice fruit, like lasting fruit, like apples and some naartjies. At the transitions, it was actually great. They had a lot of fruit at the transitions, which was awesome, and food, which helped a lot. So like a burger every now and again. But yeah, it's quite difficult to pack because you never know how you're going to feel in the race. Like sometimes you do feel like sweeter stuff and sometimes you feel like more savory stuff. But as long as you've got like your calories worked out and you have got like a good carb drink that you can sip on, it usually does take you through each leg.
Yeah, I just echo what Trace is saying. Like from a strategy point of view, we always knew that the first leg was going to be fast, so we wanted to try and carry a lot of powdered food and not heavy food, stuff that was easy to digest because we knew the pace was going to be fast. And then later in the race, move more onto solid food and like solid food wise, we ended up eating a lot of I know I did. We ended up eating a lot of the freeze-dried, forever fresh freeze-dried meals, which was a real treat. We even had, they were really quite posh. We had like ostrich stroganoff and eland lasagna. So yeah, that I also find like it's a bit of a learning process. Like what you're going to eat on day one, you're not going to probably eat on day 3, and you're not going to eat on day 5. So having some variety of food in your transition boxes is always a good idea. Between savory and sweet, between solid and powdered food. So yeah, I think we got room to improve on our nutrition. Learning what we can digest and not digest, particularly when the pace is hot. So then that first leg is so important to get right. And if you you are in deficit there, you're going to pay for that in day 2 and day 3 and day 4. So lots to learn.
Yes, it's difficult juggle when, like, for you guys especially racing at the top end, like you also weight, and it's quite a hectic thing to have to consider. A lot of options, and you kind of sometimes can't. But hats off. better, so nothing wrong. Cool. A question for you, Lancey. I do work constraints heading off for 6 months to work maybe a bit elsewhere, but do you as a team plan to do any expedition races before World Champs next year? Or what is, let's talk it through. What is your guys' sort of race plan for the next 12 months leading up to World Champs 2020?
Yeah, I think Calvin can chat more to this. He's the big planner in the team. I'm working on a project in the Middle East for 6 months. So unfortunately, we'll miss a lot of the local races like yours and the rest of Heidi's series. I'm a huge fan of all of the races that we have here. I think we're incredibly lucky. I don't know if there's any other places in the world that have the variety of races that we have on our doorstep. We'll be missing a few of those, but I'm sure the team will be there at most of the local races in the upcoming year. Next year, I think the biggest aspect where we can continue to learn and grow as a team is to get more exposure to expedition races. So we'd love to do ideally 2 more expedition races before World Champs next year, which will mean a year of 3 expedition races, which is a lot, but hopefully it can help us go from strength to strength and iron out some of the kinks in our strategy and arrive at the start line next October in the best shape we can.
Amazing. Flipping exciting. Skipper, do you want to chip in there a bit? Carl?
Next year, the hope is to do 1 expedition race fairly early in the year, in between maybe Heidi's and Stefan's races. I don't know if it is common knowledge, Heidi, about how many races there are going to be next year and what those look like, but we're planning on doing Heidi's races and then 1 fairly early expedition race in the year, and then maybe 1 mid-year. Would be lovely to try and get over to Ecuador, which I think is the end of July, to do their expedition race, because that's where 2024 World Champs is. So that'll be a good chance to recce there, and that gives us enough time to recover and then still put in a good training block before October. So that's roughly what the team's plan is for next year.
Amazing. Flipping cool. Flipping exciting. Cool. I've got 1 question for all of you just to wrap the evening up. I think we could 12 more hours, but we obviously need to bring this thing to a close at some stage. I've asked it potentially to you before, maybe once, but what is for you each individually the number 1 lesson you learned on a team basis? Then we'll go Trace, John, Calv. Go you, Lancey.
I think number 1 lesson coming out of the race probably was the importance of sleep. But it did take a few days of brain fog to clear for me to realize part of the reason why we pushed ourselves so far with the sleep is that I was convinced that because I lost the GoPro on the 3rd leg of the race, that we would incur a time penalty. We'd already heard that Avaya was getting a 2-hour penalty for something to do with their tracker. We didn't know exactly what. And the GoPro that I lost had some of our checkpoint photos. So we were like, oh, well, if we can't prove that we were there, then we'll obviously incur some penalty. And I'm guessing there was some judgment call that, our tracker showed us there. And I think we might have even been in other teams' photos at those checkpoints. So we'd raced for a few days with a mind to arriving at the final checkpoint and getting a 2-hour sleep. So that was part of the strategy of like, we can't afford to sleep 2 hours leading up to that because we're going to have to sleep 2 hours there. But yeah, that was just a little side story. Seeing the teams that managed their sleep well, finishing strong, was something that is a big takeaway for me.
Awesome. Trace, you're up.
Lesson learned, transitions. Those top teams transition super fast. And I think it's something that we can definitely rehearse and practice. And going forward, because I think it's crucial. Like, you can lose like 30 minutes at each transition easily, and that all adds in there. So if we practice it and get it slick, it will definitely help us moving forward.
Amazing. John.
You're on mute, John.
You're on mute.
Thank you. I agree with both of them. I'd sleep top of our priorities there. That is something crucial. I mean, when you race for 3 days like we did without sleep, something's got to give. And how to call it, when to call it, and a good quality sleep. So those are things that we're going to work on. But another thing that I found is a good takeaway is the buy-in from the team. We kind of all do it for the same reason, but different reasons as well. And when we do these races, and you've got to just buy into the fact that you stick to your original plan. For me, I couldn't. Heidi will contest to this, but I couldn't face another not finishing a world champs or major race. It doesn't matter if I have a foot or not at the end of it. But that's the type of buy-in. And I said from all the team members, everybody puts a lot of money in and effort, and you can't just say I've had a rough day and pull out. And that's something with everybody who enters these big races, just to get their minds around that buy-in aspect, completing the race.
You're radical. Jeez, how's that for some words of advice?
You're
watching. Caleb, you're up.
I think I think we got plenty of things wrong, but we came into the race wanting to make mistakes, or at least find out where our limits were. Like, I really wanted us to go and maybe push beyond our boundaries and see where those limits were individually and as a team, rather than race conservatively and not know where they are. Because I think the learning curve was a lot steeper, and we can take way more from it. So we went in there like guns blazing for a reason, and that was to roll the dice and see where we were going to stack up, but also to make mistakes. So I mean, we're not down. We definitely see this as a positive, like how much we are taking from it. And personally, I think one of the things that struck me the most about seeing the top teams, and we learned a lot about being around them just in general, but just the general race intensity that they have from kilometer 1 to, in this case, 550 is generally the same, and it's very high. And it doesn't matter what they're doing, it's done at a high intensity. So whether it's filling your water bottle, whether it's eating, lubing your feet, whether it's in transition, it doesn't matter. Everything is done as efficiently as possible. And when you're on your own or you're dropping down the leaderboard, it's easy to lose, or you're sleep deprived, it's easy to lose that intensity. And so that's something that I think we'll be chatting about and working on, is just how do we maintain intensity throughout. It's nice being upfront with other teams, because you just the intensity rises naturally. So there's there's some benefit from being up there, but there's also a trade-off if you don't have the speed to be up there. So that's something that I will remember and will be working on hard going forward.
Incredible. Yes, what a thing, eh? She's from lessons learned to some words of advice or encouragement to you.
I've got lots to say to the team.
Good job.
Of course, we're very proud of them. Everybody is. It's fantastic to watch them from a distance. I think we can give them quite fantastic critique, good positive critique, which I think we'll share with them personally as well. But you know, it's like when you start shaping up with the big boys, you know, you move yourself up to another league. It comes with you know, it's guts. You know, you have to go out, like they said. You don't have a choice. If you want to run in the front, you have to go out from the beginning, and that's what they did. So they showed all of us that they have the guts and they have that, you know, like that will, that emotion. But I mean, you are going to have in a 500, 600K race, like a roller coaster ride, like anybody else. You're going to have that extreme lows. And it's still, like we all know, is how to put yourself up when you're at the lowest part to make sure your recovery is as quick as possible. And I think it's that fine-tuning the team, obviously this year, must fine-tune. And I think the team, it comes with those, I hope they can manage 2 international more races. I hope they can get it under their belt to put themselves up against that kind of competition again. Because that will just tweak them to get it again right, because you need so many things just to go perfect and to fall into place. It is, you know, of course for next year a lot of pressure is going to be on this team. It's just the way it is, you know, and like John just said, the French is going to come, and we all know that they're going to come to Africa. And that adds another good pile of 4 or 5 fantastic teams around the world, which maybe wasn't there now. So, and I mean, we have more South African teams, you know, that all can run in that front pack. I mean, I don't even want to imagine that first leg of next year at Expedition Africa. I don't even want to imagine. I can't tell you, but it's not 120 Ks.
It's a paddle.
It's not 120 and it's not paddle. Except if Seven changed the route after observing Paraguay. But guys, you have to. I mean, for everybody at home, it's going to be awesome next year watching and following. I am so excited and nervous at the same time for us. But you know, you have to go out blazing, because you all know if you're not in that first pack and the first sun is gone, you're going to the first night. But what I can advise to the team, I think, is Calvin mentioned it now, and that is a big thing. When you start getting tired, and obviously you have to at some point say, guys, we are going to sleep. So they have to definitely need to maybe look a little bit more after their sleep, because you can clearly see a Avaya strategy. They just go down, sleep 2-3 hours, and then blazing past everybody again. So there's good method in that as well, because you have to at some point say, we're going to stop. And that is, I think, the hardest thing, to stop and allow people to pass you. It is like the hardest thing to do it. It's easy to say it, but to actually do it in a race, I think the team will agree with me. It's not always a place to sleep. It's not always perfect conditions to sleep. You're always... but you have to sleep. I mean, your body is falling apart if you don't sleep. But over and above that, what I do felt, what happened, and that is what Calvin just mentioned, it's the intensity that dropped. Because when you got tired, and and I could clearly see it in the teams. So what happened the later the race developed, and I think, John, you started struggling. We all knew, John, I had no doubt in my head that you're not going to finish this race. And I think we all, even with your feet, as bad as it was, I was in my head thinking, I know, John, you can't, like you just said, it's going to be not good for you, you know, obviously mentally and personally. And I think more than what people really know. But in my heart, I never doubted that. But the intensity dropped. I think it became that the team was on survival mode. and which we all knew. I think we knew the last leg or two, it was just survival. But what happened there is then the small shift. I think Tracy avoided us in the transition. Clearly, I could see that because Tracy was still focused. She wanted to get this boys going and transition and moving and helping. And Tracy, I was so impressed with you because I could see that you were functioning like a mom and like a typical filled the water bottles and throwing out instructions. And you didn't really want to talk to Heidi because she's in your way. And the boys were a little lethargic, if that is the right word. And anyway, I've got lots of stuff to say, but the intensity is like, if you want to stay in the top 10 teams, that is definitely to keep that intensity after 3-4 days when you're tired. And it's so easy to say, go, please, everybody at home always got something to say. Go just for one night and don't sleep. I mean, you can't even think. You can't now. You need to think and you need to pack. I mean, I can't even pull myself together after a day if I haven't slept. I can hardly think what I must do. So to stay focused, it's so difficult. So, but anyway, long story short, intensity, look at the focus of the thing of the sleep strategy. The positive thing of this whole thing is that now we feel that they know that they can run in the front. They know they can do it. There was not one moment where I was looking at the others and thought, oh, they're stronger than our South African team. Not one moment. The only thing is where I could see in the transitions, they had a focus plan. They said 10 minutes and they were like machines maybe in that 10 minutes and a little bit tired. They lost that intensity in the transition and really they were in survival mode. So we're super chuffed. We're super proud of them. We are super excited for next year. We hope that they can go and do more races and fine tune them. But the confidence, there should be no doubt now after this race that they can't do it. But definitely going into next year, they'll have to realize there will be more pressure on them and somehow they will have to, there's that saying where you say how to focus, tunnel vision, how to cut the noise. You'll have to cut all the noise and just go into your own bubble. And that is a technique on its own. And again, that is something you can see in Team Avaya. Team Avaya's got that to the perfect T, how to cut the noise, ignore everybody, race their own race. And that's what everybody can definitely learn from them. But I mean, all in all, from my side, I can, like I said, from an outsider view, we were there close up, hands on. There's one thing I want to mention to all the family and friends who's watching, and something that really came across great of this team. They were so tired and they most probably gave the most beautiful finishing line interview of all the teams at the World Champs. So respectfully, our South Africans just got such good manners. And even when the chips are down or whatever, the other teams raced hard. The Americans raced so hard to pass them. And there was behind the scenes such big competition in the USA and all the chat channels and South Africa, who's going to be first. And I've seen all these chats with all the groups. And the team came over the line and they just spoke so beautifully. I mean, you were all spaced out. You were so tired and you stringed these beautiful lines together, which none of the other teams could do. Everybody was standing there and all the media and they were all like, wow, that was most probably one of the most beautiful interviews. So respectful towards the race organizers and the people. And I was so proud at that moment to say I'm South African. So proud. So when... Yeah, hey, what did you say, Calvin?
I said you trained us well, Heidi.
Yeah, I actually did say to them, I trained them well. Anyway, so I will talk forever, but to all the fans at home and the family, you can be so proud of the team because I think, and I think that it came back to what John earlier said, you know, you can lose respect so easily of people. And I can tell you personally that I've lost respect for many adventure racers out there because I've seen them when they're at their worst. And when you're at your most tired and worst, people around you can all see who you really are. And not in one transition that this team disappointed us. And I promise you, a lot of the transitions I stood away far back. I tried to not to bother them too much. You just listen and you see how they went about their business and how respectful they were with the other people. So you guys really made us more than what people seem proud. More. Everybody spoke about you guys behind the scenes. And I think that is what I take mostly out of this whole race. So anyway, from our side, hats off. South Africa, you can be very proud of these guys. And I hope you guys are in your hearts proud. And obviously, I mean, I just came back from my own bubble. So it takes a bit of time to process it. And yeah, anyway, on that note.
Maybe next year we could have a Good Oak prize for the best Good Oak team. And we could find
Yeah, maybe next year we must have for the best Speedsfair and Good Oak team. Yeah.
No, hats off. I think, but I guess I can only echo Heidi's sentiments. Like, if you manage to survive into 8th place, I'm not disappointed because you were jousting with the top 5. But if you manage to survive to an 8th place in your first World Champs, only being surrounded by raced for the large majority of the teams surrounding you 10 years. And tough. And we're excited and proud as a country to watch you go and kick some ass. So
and last thing, Robert, make sure next year, guys, next year. Robert, next year they're not allowed to miss the prize giving.
I don't know why they flew out so early. I'm still perplexed, but nevertheless. Yeah, so without further ado, thank you all. We're going to wrap it up. We've heard a lot from all the goodness of the racing and from the legends that are Team Songlines. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, thank you all so much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Wendell.
Bye. Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.
Cheers, eh?
Cheers. Cheers, sir. I missed the last bit. Thanks, Rob.